Today's conversation with Eric Raber is full of brotherly love. I met Eric about 3 months ago on a men's call and was immediately drawn to him. So today, in our conversation, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that we both are very passionate about, which is sound, men's work. He's very passionate about Qigong, which is something that was introduced to me through him. Towards the end, we start talking about families and get deep into a lot of the ways that we are nurturing our children and bringing them up into this world. Real excited for this talk. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back to our show. Today I'm sitting with a brother that was on a call with me about a month ago. We did a nice men's work group, and that was the first time I met Eric. And from that moment, I kind of knew that as soon as I met him, I'm like, dude, we got to talk. This guy, there's something about this guy. I think you were the very first person that was on the call when I logged in, besides Cam and Justin. And I immediately looked at you and I'm like, oh, there's something about this dude. There's something about this guy. I don't know what it is. I'm drawn to him. He's got long, white, flowing hair and a big beard. He looks like a wizard in some kind of way. And then one of the first things you talked about was this like explosion of masculine energy, and just like, oh yes, I just want to fight somebody. And I'm like, oh shit, dude, this guy is fucking serious, man. I don't know what up with it, dude, but I need to get to know him. And as soon as our call was ended, I texted you and I'm like, hey, I know this might sound weird, we just met, but I want to have you on my podcast. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but you got some good energy, and dude, we got to chat. So thank you so much for being part of this, brother. I really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, brother. Thank you for seeing me and inviting me here. And I felt the same, man. It was like that day, bringing that fire out is newer to me in this healthy way, in a healthier way. When I was younger, it was really easy to bring the fire out because I was so angry, like anger fire, anger, rage. And so, yeah, so that night we met, I was kind of feeling like playful fire.
Yeah.
Like a playful, like, I want to fight, but like in a loving way. Like, give me a little punch here or there. I'm good with that. And but yeah, it's it's a new thing for me to bring that out and be okay to like bring that energy into men's spaces. I don't typically bring that in when I'm around females because it can kind of get scary unless they're fighters themselves and they like to wrestle and box and things, which there's plenty of them out there that like to throw down like that in a fun way.
Most definitely. And that's that balance of masculine and feminine energy. You know, it's not like that, you know, females can have balanced masculine and feminine energy, just like males can have balanced feminine and masculine energy.
Yeah.
And one of the, you know, one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about today was that masculine energy that we kind of draw into at times, you know, and you know, in my spiritual journey, I can't say it's been misguided because all of our journeys, like we have epiphanies, we have revelations and realizations, and then we kind of fold those into our practice and understanding. Yeah. And one of the things in my early times of my spiritual practice was to try to dispel any aggressive energy, I should say. I've never been a really aggressive person growing up. You know, I did a little bit of like heavy bag work to dispel some energy when I was younger. Used to lift weights, you know, like pushing heavy things up, but you know, I never really found a healthy way to disperse the masculine energy that's inside of me. Until I really found yoga. Yoga was a good step for me to help harness and understand that there is energy within me, and then what to do with that. But as I've gotten deeper into my practice, I just feel like this. I don't want to call it rage, but there it feels at times like there's this thing raging inside of me of just like, oh, I just want to get this shit out, but I don't know how. Like I'm not a fighter. I'm not typically an angry person. So like there's this naggingness of energy that kind of just sits inside of me of like, I don't know what to do with this shit.
I feel you. I was getting chills right there just thinking about that because like I was saying, I've always had this massive like masculine energy but it also, when I was younger, it was kind of tainted with anger and sadness. And so not that that's a bad thing because those are all the emotions, but it was like I was looking to show people how angry I was and how sad I was through like messing them up. Like that's what I wanted to do. Where now that's really the opposite. is I want to own my anger and sadness and that rage that I might feel in a safe container, like in these men's circles where all these brothers are surrounding me and I'm screaming and yelling
Mm.
and I have hands on me and I'm releasing this rage. For me personally, my rage is typically behind it is sadness.
Mm.
Like almost always there's like this deep sadness of like not feeling seen, me not it always comes back to like myself where it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't allowing myself to feel this sadness and I
Mm.
just kept in that masculine way, just doing and doing and doing and doing rather than sitting back in that feminine energy and feeling it fully
Mm.
and then using that masculine to go for it and like and put it in action.
Yeah.
And so how I've been working with that is, like I said, in men's circles when we are gathering, but I've also in boxing is kind of a new thing that I'm getting more into
Mm.
and just really going in there instead of just, that heavy bag, like field my energy is like I'm owning my own anger and I'm like, okay, I'm channeling this energy through rather than giving it to, if that makes
It
sense.
does. Yeah.
A different approach. And so it feels really healthy. And I feel like a safe spout where I used to feel unsafe even in myself in this rage and anger because it was so volatile.
Right.
It was at the edge of like a teapot. It's just boiling, ready to burn anybody, anything. And now it's like I have tools before I get there,
Mm.
before it gets to that point of acknowledgement and really, like you were saying, is like accept these things. Accept, hey, I am feeling sadness. I'm feeling this anger build up. And now there's different tools that I use. One of them may be sparring with somebody.
Mm.
One of them may be wrestling. One of them may be screaming and punching a pillow in my room. So yeah, it's like learning, and I feel this journey for me very similar to it sounds your path is I was like at the beginning I tried not block it out, but I was like I know I've got all this rage and anger. I'm looking for peace and joy and
Mm.
happiness, and for myself on my journey, I kind of over happied it
Okay.
and I wasn't acknowledging these aspects of me
Mm.
and they were building. It's like, man, I'm doing an hour and a half of meditation. I'm doing all this qigong. I'm doing all these things. Why am I feeling this rage in my body? What
Uh-huh.
is going on? And really, until I kind of stepped into deeper men's work, was like, oh my gosh, like this is really what I've been missing is a safe container where I think that the mass, men meeting men in that way can create some safety where that protector energy that I want to have around my children and my wife and other women. I don't want to show them my rage, and I maybe withhold some of that because I just personally haven't found a way to safely let it out in those areas.
Right.
So the men's work is where I'm finding a safe spot for me and a safe spot just to go there and be all of me and release it, feel it,
Mm.
and be supported, and not like feel like I'm losing face as a man because I not lost my shit, but just let it all out
Right.
and was just being in it.
Yeah, and that's some of the most important work for those allure type groups. Whether it's gender specific men's groups, women's groups, safe containers. Whatever allure group you're part of.
Yeah,
That's it. That creates that container to where for men's group, I can only speak to that because that's the main thing that I've been a part of. But when
yeah,
you're surrounded by people that have the similar, let's say, stories that are put on them, those archetypal stories of imbalance, the imbalanced warrior, lover, all these things that the imbalanced king, that's one of the biggest masculine archetypes that's imbalanced right now that we're shown
yeah,
on a regular basis on, from political figures to, heads of state to heads of companies, right? This not toxic, I don't want to use that word, but this imbalanced
yeah,
masculinity. And that's what we're being shown, and so it really does take a lot of work for the person to understand that that is not the stereotype that we want to follow. That's not the flag we want to wave for masculinity. We want to find the balance for that. And
Yeah.
finding these practices, like you're talking about, men's work, energy work, things like that. It's so important to the individual to find what works for them. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love about men's work so far that I've been a part of is teaching you the vocabulary to use, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
I used to be sad. I used to be angry. And
Mm-hmm.
you said it earlier just perfectly. You have sadness with you, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
with sadness, I'm with anger. And if we're with something, we can be without it. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I am angry, then I am that. And if I am that, then that's my being, right? But if I have anger, that means I can not have it. I can give it away. I can let it go, right? So
Yeah.
just that verbiage
Yes.
itself, just teaching you that of like, oh man, that's just a nice realization for me of like, well, shit, if I do have something, I'm holding this, I can let it go. I can set it down. So that anger, how do I
Yeah.
set that down in a responsible way?
That is so powerful. It is like it ties into all, all the sound energy. The sound work is like everything is sound. So that vibration of have versus I am,
Mm,
like that alone has so much power. Like the spell, the casting of spelling.
uh-huh.
Wow. It's like I just keep, like, it blows me away. I have to pinch myself sometimes how deep this goes,
Right.
how deep and how specific we can get with living our lives on purpose and
Mm,
living, like, owning. For me, on my, exactly like you said, is like owning as much as myself. I've put so much blame on the rest of the world in the past of my life, and victimized myself, and I felt helpless and
mm,
all these things. And the more I'm stepping into owning all of my own stuff, I don't feel like when someone cuts me off in traffic, I'm just, it doesn't rub me.
right.
It's not against me anymore. Everything isn't against me. My boss does this. It's not against me.
Right.
And man, I was, speaking of that rage and all those things, that's the vocabulary I had at that time. Even though I was doing all these other practices, I still kept some of this vocabulary, and that kind of shackled me a
Mm.
bit. Honestly, it shackled me into that belief. Like I get to go to work versus I have to go to work.
Yes, definitely, man. Yeah, when I started my own business recently, I had to redefine terms, and the first term was busy. I used to be like, "Fuck, man, I'm busy. I'm so busy. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I can't even like do laundry. I'm so busy. I can't even pay my bills." And
Yeah.
now it's like, I'm busy. Thankfully, I'm my own boss, right? I gotta
Mm-hmm.
be busy, right? I gotta have people
Yeah.
coming in. I gotta be hustling on my side. So
Mm-hmm.
changing the definition of some of those words and the meanings that they entice inside of us. It's like, oh, fucking busy. It's like, no, I'm busy. Now I'm smiling when I'm busy. I'm not
Yes.
downtrodden. Like I'm appreciating that shit, man.
Yes. Hell yeah. And I just wanted to share this, kind of on those, like, owning, something. This teacher was a while ago. I was in this class, and the way he talked about emotions
Hmm.
just super resonated with me. Where it was, he said, all of these emotions, whatever you want to call them, good, bad, anything, like, take those labels off. They're like little children showing up,
Hmm.
and they just want to be seen.
Hmm.
They want to be seen. So it's like whatever it is, love, but like I'm more like the emotions that we've typically expressed as like negative or lower energy vibrating emotions.
Hmm.
It's like, say, oh, I'm feeling the shame, like the shame's coming up. Is like, oh, instead of like, I'm gonna get rid of you, shame, you're out. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, thank you for showing up. Shoosh, and usually there's a message in that. Like, where maybe am I out of integrity in my own life? Where am I today? I'm not focusing on that. I can use this message of shame or guilt or something that's like, oh, interesting. Okay, thank you, and acknowledging, and then letting it go, because it's like, I know you have kids, I have kids,
Hmm.
and if I'm just like, stop, get over there, just quit it, get in your room, like, it escalates. But
Right.
if I'm like, hey baby, like, I'm noticing you're feeling this like, are you feeling this way? Yeah, and like the acknowledgement, and then 30 seconds later they forgot and it's gone.
Right. Yep.
Or it can go on all day long and it spirals out of control, and shit's hitting the fan left and right. So this little message of like acknowledging as a child for me really resonated with me is like the being with these is like being with,
Mm,
and they don't control me. Even like the love and all these things is like losing attachment to all these things. This is how I'm feeling. Feel it. Feels wonderful. Feels to feel this vibing through my body, and not just like, oh, the shame comes in. It's like, oh man, what happened? I'm feeling shitty. It's like, oh, phew. And so it's a work in progress for me for sure
yeah.
to incorporate this way of life. And like anything, practice, practice, practice,
Hmm.
and it's becoming more part of my life. And I'm seeing the fruits of that in my family, in my relationships, how I don't feel a victim as much anymore.
That's a big part, right? That's a lot of that fear and that anger comes back to us feeling like we're being taken advantage of or not being heard, and that victim mentality. And
Yeah,
like that, the problem is usually part of the solution. And that's that acknowledgement that you're talking about. If I don't
yeah,
acknowledge the fear and the anger that I have, then it's just going to grow. But if I acknowledge, hey, Adam, you're in a little bit of fear right now. It's like, okay, cool,
hmm,
let's explore that. And through that understanding and accepting of the fear that I have, I can understand where it came from, and
yeah,
start to maybe put some work around that. Like with
yeah,
I've been doing a lot of ego work lately, and one of the medicines I use for ego work is psilocybin, and I'll go on
hmm,
these pretty big macro journeys, and do some work like that. And I remember it was about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, but I had a big mushroom journey, and my goal was to pry that ego away from me. I'm done with you. I'm done with I call him corporate Adam. I'm done with
yeah,
that guy. I appreciate what you've done, but we can't do this anymore. And so
yeah,
deep into my mushroom journey, I got to a place where I'm like, okay, let's get that spiritual crowbar out, buddy. You're going. And that dude hung on so tight. Hung on. He was pleading. He was begging. He was, showing me why he needed me. And I'm like, dude, I'm done. I can't get away from me. And then finally, there's something came over me, and I gave myself a hug, and I said, dude, I love you,
mm,
and you're part of me, and I understand where you're at, and I understand you're just afraid because you've been with me for the past, let's say, 37 years.
yeah,
You've been controlling and driving this ship, and now somebody new is coming up, and it's like, well, do I trust this person? Do I
hmm,
do I understand that this person has my best interest in mind? And so, like, just giving the ego that hug and showing him that love made him understand that I was doing what we felt was best for us and not just for me, and not trying to push you as the ego out. And that was a fucking just an epiphany for me. And there's still, I mean, my ego still flares quite a bit, but now I understand where he's coming from, and I understand what he sounds like. So I can
mm.
differentiate between what that dude sounds like, what my consciousness sounds like, what my higher power sounds like. But
Man, I
man,
love that.
beautiful stuff, man.
Y-
But yeah, it's the solution is part of the problem. You got to understand the problem, acknowledge the problem to find the solution.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
gotten chills probably like 5 times so far in this conversation. Just keep getting chills. I'm like, phew, this is beautiful,
I
man.
love it, man. Well, with your with your practices that you have, what was one of the first things that you found to help understand that masculine energy and help get you into a place of, acknowledging the emotions for what they are, and
Yeah.
working with that energy to not dispel it, but to disperse it
Hmm.
in a proper way?
Yeah. A few things. For sure, meditation, but Qigong
Mm-hmm.
was a major one for me. It began to create sensitivity in all of the energy vibrations flowing through me, and really creating that practice of kind of becoming a tree, becoming
Mm-hmm.
a tree where it's the emotions come up and I'm deeply rooted into the ground. And like in this practice, you create, this imagery and this feeling like you are becoming a tree. And the more that I've done that, the more I've been able to weather the storms that come in of life, and remember I am a tree. A
Mm-hmm.
tree does lose its leaves. A tree die. Parts of a tree dies. A limb falls off. Sometimes the whole tree needs to die to grow a new tree.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's helped me through this whole path of discovering and becoming me, becoming my highest self, to remember is like, I am a tree. I'm part of this forest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating this and there's always the relationship with all these other beings through the mycorrhizal underneath, and so there's this whole relationship. And so for me, that imagery has helped me gain trust in myself and gain, again, like the sensitivity to my own emotions. And like you were talking about, it's kind of almost like, I mean, it feels like a similar thing is where you're just tapping deep into the psyche with like a psilocybin experience, is feeling and hearing different emotions, like feeling the changes, the subtleties of my ego or whatever, all these different, my sadness, my anger, and there's a tone, and I figured out like there's a little tone and somewhere in my body that I can feel these things, and the more I've built the sensitivity, the more I'm able to use that. I'm able to use that energy and move that energy and flow in that energy. And there's been times during this path that I wasn't,
Yeah.
where I was kind of on a autopilot, still doing this practice. You know, I've been doing it almost 20 years, and there was a part where I was like, I was in physical pain and all these different things, where it was like I was still doing it. So I'm grateful I was, but it was, my Sifu used to call it like, there's an empty. He would look at someone and go, that's a very empty practice, very empty, very, so it's like he would say, look, you have a soup, but there's no spices and there's no vegetables in there.
Okay.
But it's okay to continue. So in this practice, I've created the soup, but at times I've forgotten to add my spices and my vegetables, and notice maybe they're in there and I just didn't notice they were in there because I was caught up in my own ego trip or pain and creating these issues. But yeah, so that's Qigong. Really what brought me to Qigong is I had a broken back.
Mm.
I was in a wheelchair to crutches, and I was trying all different types of things.
Wow.
And things would help. You know, chiropractor did help, but it wouldn't lock in. Massage and some body work would help for sure. Nothing was fully locking in, and I found acupuncture, and this acupuncturist was like, here, do these exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 months go by, I'm feeling better, because I would look, you know, to the left too fast and my back would go out, and
Oh,
it was
shit.
just, it was miserable. And so after 3 months, I realized, wow, my back is not going out anymore. So I was like, what is these exercises? I want to know more. And so she told me, though, that's Qigong.
Mm.
And so it started my path of finding masters and really studying with several different practitioners and dedicating my life to it. It's I would say saved my life, honestly. It has
Wow.
been a major part that turned a broken back situation to something, you know, it steered me in a direction of deeper spirituality, of deeper being, of belonging and becoming, rather than victimizing myself. Even though that's come in at times on this other journey,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't set me on this other path, which I could have just as easily have gone on.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Kind of kept you more
Yeah.
present with the emotions that you're feeling instead of letting that story take over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
And
think that with that intuitiveness of qigong and building that energy and being able to start feeling it, do you think that added to your intuition in general, like your overall
massively,
intuition?
massively, yeah. And I for years, I can't even recall the person now, but there was this like a practice to practice your intuition from, like, should I take a left here or take a right here and driving, and like trusting. It's like these exercises
Hmm.
to do. And it was around the same time I started qigong, and it's really kind of intertwined me to trust my intuition, to trust myself. And I would for sure, there's a balance that I am finding continuously of like intuition versus projection, because sometimes it's like,
Hmm.
and I'm learning that voice and that tone that is intuition, and the projection tries to imitate sometimes the intuition. And so it's finding that balance, because it is like sometimes it's like, hey, I'm noticing this person, I don't feel safe with them around my children.
Yeah.
That's trusting. Whereas like a projection, I might be like, oh, they're this, they're doing that, all these things is like, I'm learning to not add on to my intuitions. And where the projections, I can quickly stack up stories.
Yeah. I think you know what? It's funny. I didn't put that together until you just mentioned that, but I think that's kind of where I'm at right now is trying to differentiate my intuition from my projection. Because I definitely
Yeah.
feel stronger with my intuition now, but there's also still that little whisper of my ego that's like, but this, and they're just like adding on to that story. And so I'm trying to get to that point to where I can differentiate between those voices and then between those feelings.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned that that sound that you hear a couple times now, and in my meditations, it took me a while to understand that this ringing in my ear that I was hearing. I kind of thought it was tinnitus for a little while, and it still may be. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I anytime I sit down and meditate or I focus on my spirituality, this ringing kind of pops up in my ears. And sometimes it's like this shimmery kind of silvery sound. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
like a high pitched, humming of some sort. And what I'm figuring out now is I'm assuming now is it's almost like I'm learning a different language, right? So
Yeah.
there's something
Yeah.
communicating with me. I just don't understand what it's saying yet, right? It's like if I don't understand Mandarin, so if it's like if somebody was standing across from me having a conversation in Mandarin, I'm like, I know you're talking to me, but I have no fucking idea what you're saying.
Yes.
And so and what I'm trying to rationalize in my own brain is that like, you're trying to see music and smell colors, right? That's a
Yeah.
thing that you're not used to doing. So give yourself
Yeah.
grace, give yourself time, acknowledge and just celebrate the fact that you feel that you're being communicated to, and that's something you can understand. From there, we'll put those pieces together. And so, like
Yeah.
you're saying with that tone, like I'm trying to start to recognize, like when I'm in this mode, this is the tone that I hear, and this means fear, or this means safe, or this means questioning, and I'm trying to figure that out within me. But there's no blueprint for this shit, and the
No.
tones that make
No.
sense to me might not make sense to you. So it's not like I can go to you and be like, Eric, when you hear an A flat minor, this is what that means. You're like, that doesn't mean shit to me, dude.
Man, like because it's like I hear those sounds, like my ego talks, like it's like a low, like it's not even words necessarily though. It's like this, like this energy I can feel like bubbling, and it's like a low or high. And like I was saying, the deeper I go on trusting my intuition, the more the ego tries to like get its voice to match my intention in there, and tries to, even though like it's like, dude, I like you're in a clown outfit, like, dude, I see
100%,
you,
man.
you're hiding behind the stick, bro, like what, like are you kidding me? Like, I love you so much, but like, dude, the game's over. I see you. Like, look, I'm the new guy.
Yeah,
You're like,
right.
dude, you're the same one, bro. Like,
Oh, dude, I'm so happy you said that, man, because my ego whispers sometimes, like my consciousness, it'll sound all sweet and gentle, and then sometimes
oh yeah,
it's like screaming at me. I'm like, dude, just stop, man. I see you. I
yeah,
get you, man. I get you, brother.
yeah, it's totally fine. Like, yeah, come on in. Yeah,
Oh my God.
you should totally be out of integrity right here.
Right. It's justified. You're good, bro.
Yeah,
You're
you
good.
should totally. It's all good. You're tired, man. You're tired. It's all good.
Oh man, it's sneaky, man. It is a sneaky little beast.
Yeah, a big one for me too is years ago one of my mentors was like, just not just, but like pray for whatever is to you, creator, your spirit guides, whatever like you feel connected to, is like, be super clear to me, please. Be super clear. I want these messages, and I'm getting this right now, is I get chills. I actually get, that's how, the message I know that I'm like in present moment, and I'm in this spirit-led, heart-led way, is for me when I get those chills over and over, and maybe even ask a question where I'm a little unclear in my intuition. I'm just like, can you show me? Like I'm not really, I'm not able to feel this right now, and I'm needing some support, please. And it's like, that's how I get whether it's my intuition, spirit coming through. Uh, I just love it all. So it's like
Yeah.
I differentiate but don't differentiate. And my spiritual path is kind of like it's all connected. It's all, the ancestors, spirit, God, trees,
Hmm.
all these energies is it's one, but yes, there's subtleties in all of it. And so yeah.
Yeah. That concept to me is very comforting, but also super overwhelming. And I don't know if it's that the controlling part of my mind that because was a corporate guy for a while. I was in charge of teams. I'm used to having control. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily like to be in control, right? But I'm
Yeah.
used to having it. So I think that was something that I just innately kind of sought was control. So that's been something I've been unraveling for a number of years now. But when I sit down and I think about just like I'll sit outside and meditate, just listen to birds, listen to the grass, wind blowing, all this stuff, and just try to connect with Mother. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's beautiful, and I'm like, oh, just I can feel it. And then sometimes I'm like, there is so much going on out here that I don't understand. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to begin. Like the wind blowing means something. That bird chirping means something. That I
Mm.
just heard the grass grow. Did I just watch a flower open up? Like what the fuck does that mean? And it's so overwhelming at times. It's like I don't know where to start. I don't know where to
Yeah.
begin. But I
Hmm.
understand also that's part of that control practice and that egoic practice of I
Yeah.
don't need to understand, right? There's a gnosis, that understanding inside that I just get somehow, and I don't really
Yeah.
have to explain it. Like sound healing, right? There is science behind sound healing now, but there's also just the fact that you can feel it working in your body. And do
Hmm.
I need to have some kind of like scientific material to show me why it's working, or can I just sit there and ethereally feel it and be a
Hmm.
part of that experience and just embrace it? So that's like that kind of
Yeah.
thing I'm trying to work with outside meditations is I
Yeah.
don't need to understand what just made that flower open. I could, there's probably some scientific shit that says sun hits it at this certain time and it opens up
Yeah.
and it's facing east or whatever the hell it is. But I can
Yeah.
also just be like, hey, dude, I just watched that flower open. How poetic was that? That was fucking beautiful.
Yes.
Just gonna let that
Yes.
land within me and just kind of make that part of my meditation today.
Yeah, I feel you because it's like, is it like part of your experience or is it in the head? Like, is it like, do we have to? Because I'm the same way. Is like sometimes I'm like I feel like I need all these certifications, and
Mm.
if I don't know this, these 50 books of the deepest qigong things, then can I really teach somebody? It's like really like that is it's BS.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the ego, like you said, looking for control or to for me it's like a holding back of it's like, well, you're not super qualified for that yet. And it's
Right.
like, oh, you've trained with a bunch of, sound therapists, but you don't have the certification from this place yet.
Hmm.
Or and so, that's actually to get into that a little deep is like I'm actually with the sound healing and sound therapy is and just sound ceremony
Hmm.
is getting deeper and deeper into that. And in the men's work, in from online to was it 2 weekends ago I was up at a Sacred Sons event.
Mm.
It was called the Immersion, and I was invited to come up and play music. And so it was like, me? I'm like, okay, me? And I was like, yes, I'll come up there. And so I had preconceived things of like, okay, and I've never done an event where it's like I'm not doing a like I've never really actually done an event with sound bowls out. I've done it for friends and I've done it for myself
Uh-huh.
and in smaller settings. And as well as this was like not doing a sound bath. This was like we're going through processes and where's these interstitial moments.
Mm.
And Camo actually really helped me is like because I was playing at moments. He's like, hey, like if you want to dive deeper, he's like, I just throw it out there, suggest like just little, even if it's just a little rattle at the end of a process, just kind of tie it up and things. Because I was not holding back, but I'd never done that, and I'm like, I was really conscious of not feeling like I needed to do sound
Yeah.
And so but I ended up just listening in and tuning in, and like day 2 was like super in it, and getting to the drum and getting to the rattle and getting to the bowls and
Yeah.
flutes and all these different things. And it gave me that realization of like, not a needed term, but like this is desired out there.
Yeah.
The reflection I got back from so many men was just like, wow, this was such a massive part of this journey for me. Like hearing the music, hearing these things, and really being able to be a realization for me is I've been practicing for 10 years or so with the sound therapy and learning and going to workshops and doing these things and playing online and things. But my ego was like, you're not good enough yet. You don't have all these things mastered yet. Like, and it's like, screw that.
Yeah.
It's time. The medicine is desired out there. There's a lot of opportunity, and as we're all expanding, it's like sound. I mean, like sound is so powerful.
Yes.
And something that I love to do that someone showed me when I first started is, filling up one of your Tibetan bowls with water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, what happens when I bang it? Boom, water splashes out. It's like, okay, we're made of like mostly water.
Uh-huh.
So this is a representation of you while you're doing these sound journeys. So it's like, yes, sometimes you might want to splash the energy. Sometimes you might want to softly bring the energy. And so that's something that, like, that resonated with me. I didn't have to learn all these other things. Like, I am water.
Yeah.
I'm made up of mostly water. So these sound instruments affect, and if my intention is to hold space, to send love through the notes I'm playing, to be in tune with the energies of the space, there is healing. There is opening. There's magical. There's portals. Like anything you want to call it. There is like a oneness. I mean, sound brings like a oneness, a timelessness. So yeah, I'm all in now of stepping into the sound journeys and hope to collaborate with you someday.
Oh, dude, hell yes, brother, hell yes.
Yeah.
Man, one of the last, it might have been the last men's online men's group that we did. It was a 6-week series. You did a sound bath for us, and so first off, phenomenal. It was amazing. Like, I don't get to receive sound baths that often because I'm a sound healer, so usually I'm doing them. So just one to receive is always a beautiful experience for me. But what you layered in, from the Tibetan bowls to the flute work you did, and just, it was such a beautiful experience. I felt so good, and I don't do a lot of even when I have opportunity for a sound bath to receive. It's not usually online; it's usually in person. And the experience that I had with your sound bath online was such an ethereal, beautiful experience. Like the musicianship that you have, the way that you layered in everything, it was very poetic and very intuitive. I could just feel the intuitiveness of you just moving through the bowls and all the instruments that you worked with. It was amazing. And then to learn afterwards that that's not something you do on a regular basis. I'm like, what the fuck, man? You need to get out there and share that medicine, brother. You're doing some good shit, man.
Man, I appreciate that. And I've honestly, like, you saying that gave me a courage like that. You recognizing and seeing me in that gave me is like, knowing that's what you do out there in the world. Like you are providing this medicine on a basis, on a continuous basis out in the world, was like, okay, like that was a certification. That was like,
there you go, right?
You certified me.
I feel that, brother. Sometimes we need, like we know inside, but there's just that one little bit of like encouragement that we'll need to be like, just to seat the understanding of like, yes, I'm on the right path. I'm doing what I feel is right. Didn't need that external validation, but I got it, and that felt really nice.
It's like I had been heading in that direction, and it was kind of like a validation of like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
like,
we ain't got all day, bro.
It's time, dude. Like, it's like, quit playing around, man. Step into this. And so I am. I don't know exactly where this is going. I know, like, in men's work, I I'm going to continue to bring it in there, but I also want to explore actual sound bass in person with other not performers, but medicine people, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's singers, drumming, other bowls, flutes, like orchestras
Yes.
of things. And I've been to some of those before where it's like 5, 6, 7 people, and it can be beautiful. It can also be chaotic,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is also beautiful.
Right.
Yet when you have people that super connect, like, and are in tune and not performing, but connecting,
Right.
rather than it's like, hey, this is my instrument.
Uh-huh.
I want to hear my instrument, but like really creating that web of sounds, it is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like you got in a spaceship and traveled to another dimension and came back, and it's like, okay, I'm going to bring part of that with me now that it's literally in my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's in my body and resonating in a different frequency.
I have a dream of having a sound bath like that. And when we started talking about collaborating, I mean, me, you, and Camo, and whoever else, like that's exactly what I'm thinking of. That this big like storyscape almost. Where we all
Yeah.
have our own instruments and we have our offerings that we have, but it's this beautiful like play off back and forth of just everybody intuitively moving where they need to move. And sometimes it's this story that's very beautiful, and sometimes it sounds like a fucking crazy John Coltrane album from the 70s. But it all just makes sense in
Yes.
some kind of weird,
Yes.
cool way. And I love that like 90-minute, 2 hour, just lay back and just see what the hell happens kind of idea.
Yeah. And since I've had that planted too, I've imagined, and I've just really been wanting to in myself, because embracing more of the feminine, like a beautiful female
Mm,
vocalist, ethereal, like playing instruments as well, but like this beautiful queen goddess voice,
uh-huh.
just reverbed out,
Oh,
just
just toning over
floating
everything.
through. It's just like, whoa.
Ooh, now you're giving me chills, brother. Dude, hell yeah, man. So, did you have a music background before you started doing sound healing, or was that something that just kind of manifested when the instruments came up?
Yeah, I do. I was, let's see, probably in high school. I mean, all growing up, I was musical, but I hid it because I was an
Mm,
athlete, and I was kind of like almost embarrassed to sing, or, like the talent shows I wanted to, but I just didn't.
mm,
But I was always singing in my bed, like grew up singing a lot,
yeah.
like nonstop, where just like over and every album I'd get, I would sing everything multiple times, and just so singing's always been in my background. And then it was like high school, there was a big party,
Mm-hmm.
and this band was playing like Deftones, Pantera,
Uh-huh.
like, but their singer didn't show up, and I was like, yeah, I'll get up there. I had a couple beers in me, and I was
There you
like,
go.
I'll give this a try. And I went up, and people were like, yo, dude, like, this is something, this was off the hook. Like, the party was going nuts, and I was going into it.
Huh.
And it inspired me to begin, like, oh, maybe this is something I want to explore. Started exploring it, but kind of was back burner. Got in that car accident, broke my back. It became the front burner
Mm.
of playing music. I traveled to Brooklyn, played music in New York, played in many different bands, probably 10 plus 15 different bands,
Wow.
all different types. And so, yeah, I was playing a lot of music. And what I would do is I found myself, we'd go to studios and make demos. And I was really loving watching the engineers tweak things and
Mm.
do all those things. And so I started to kind of the responsible artist that was like seeing, when you're 20 and you see a 30-year-old, they're like old.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So you see this 30-year-old sleeping on couches looking to be a rock star. You're like, maybe I want to try something else.
Uh,
Like, and so I let that creep in a little bit, which in a way, our journeys are our journeys.
right.
And so I'm grateful for it. And I ended up going to school for music engineering,
Hmm.
mixing at the Art Institute up in Seattle when it was, I don't even know if it's open anymore, but
Nah, it shut down. Yeah.
yeah, so I went there, got like a music engineering degree. And then, yeah, from there, it was like I found myself transitioning into sound design and sound effects during school. They didn't really have a program for that.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of people making movies, making animations, and they would have no sound to it, just playing music. And so I was like, yo, I'll do your sound on that thing. Do you
Oh
want
yeah.
some robot sounds or whatever? And so I found myself loving that, which I thought I was going to be in studios nonstop.
Right.
I thought that was the path. And so basically straight out of college, although I was interning and working, doing live sound for work, like while I was going to school, I was a live sound engineer. So and like just in, learning that way, and ended up going and getting a job in LA, like right out of college, running coffee
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
and learning the business. The
Yeah.
lady was like, "Hey, you want to come down to LA and run coffee for me?" And I was like, "Sure." She's like, I will make sure, I'll guarantee that if you do that well, I will train you and get all the people to train you
Hmm.
to do exactly what you want to do."
All right.
And I did.
All right.
I got all the orders right.
Yeah.
I got the lunches. I got all those things. So I'd work like day shift doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and nighttime. I mean, I pretty much slept in the studio for the first year
Yeah.
doing sound editorials. Like, hey, like, do you want to do sound effects on this movie? We don't have a budget to pay you, but do you want to do it? It's like, don't even ask me anymore.
Yep.
Yes to everything.
Hell yeah.
And I did, and I grinded it out, and so that's kind of been the journey I've been on for the last pretty much 20 years, I guess.
Wow.
Almost 20 years.
What years were you at the Art Institute? I went to the Art Institute also.
I was there, I graduated, what was it, 2003?
Oh
So
shit.
I was there for 2 years during that time.
Dude,
right
I think
before
we
there.
overlapped. I was 2001 to 2002, I think. Or 2000
So
to
we were,
2002.
I was I was starting
Yeah.
right in that time
I'll be
frame.
damned. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a, yeah, it did shut down, and but I had a good experience with those guys. Kevin
Me
Bressler,
too.
Tom Faffel. Like, there's some great teachers that came out of that place that
Yeah.
really,
Did you
I
do
would,
the end sound too?
I did, yeah. I was live. I went there for recording, and then ended up transitioning to live sound, and we were doing the live sound classes over at the Moore Theater downtown Seattle.
I love that class.
Yeah, dude, it was
I
great,
love
man.
that class.
Yeah.
I used to live right next to there, at the um, apartments right next to the Moore Theater.
Okay.
That's where I was living when I went to the Art Institute. I don't know if it's a good idea to have student housing and a bar at the bottom.
Dude, I was about to say, there's a bar right there, isn't there?
It's like, dude, really? There's a bar at the bottom of a student housing. That
Oh,
is
shit.
bad news.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
when
man,
you,
Tom Faffel.
oh,
Dude, I haven't heard his name in forever. He was so good.
he was such a good fucking teacher, man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, did you hear he passed away? Yeah.
I did.
That was
Yeah.
a crazy circumstances.
Yeah.
One of the most talented guys I've ever met. He was such an asshole at times, but so
Oh,
talented.
dude, him and I butted. I just want to tell this quick story
Oh
now
yeah.
that we know that. So we butted heads, and I was like, it was kind of like, I was like, dude, I'm not. This like sucks, and I don't remember what happened, but he was just like super whatever. But so I was interning with this guy, Mark Kavanaugh was his name. He had a mobile recording truck in town back
Okay.
in the day. So I was interning with him, like running the Pro Tools, basically recording. And so he had a big, like several shows at the Experience Music Project. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
still called that. And it was like all these big bands, Cheap Trick, Heart, and he was Heart's
Sound guy.
sound guy. So he was in there. So I'm the Pro Tools guy. So anyways, I'm setting up all the stuff and he sees me there. He's like, fuck you doing here for? I'm like, I'm running out in the truck, man. All right. And like from then on, we were super bonded. Like
All right.
it was just like this awesome experience where, I mean, I think he was hard on people when he either was hard on them like, you're not in this to do anything, like don't waste my time, or hard on you because he's like, I know you can do better.
Right.
And I think that was the case for me. It was like he saw is like, dude, I talked to the other teachers. This isn't a big school. Like, I know you're on there. What's up?
Yeah.
Like, you don't respect me. You don't value me or whatever it was,
Uh-huh.
whatever the fuck it was. And so I just thinking back, man, he was a big person who motivated me in so many different ways and opened my eyes and ears to sound. It's like, don't mix for levels, dude, ever.
Yeah.
It's like mix for sound. Like if it's crunched and it sounds beautiful, great. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, one of my favorite Tom Faffel stories was working at the Moore Theater. We had a guest band come in to mic the stage and do all that stuff. We're just testing all that stuff out. And we got the stage mic, got the band on there, and they were friends of Tom's. They were somewhat famous. I think they were like part. There were some members of ABBA, some members of Heart, and some members of Queensryche. And they were just like, Tom's like, oh yeah, these are my homies. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is this? These are like, the rock stars from like the 70s and 80s, dude. And he's like, oh, these are my homies.
yeah,
And so we set the monitor mixes, and it's off to the stage. We're on the stage in the monitor console, and I can't remember who was playing guitar, but he looks over to me and he points at his ear and he gives me the thumbs up. Like turn me up. I can't hear myself, so I'm like, cool.
yeah,
Turned him up, and then Tom said, he puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, okay, so if this was a real life application, you'd be dodging a beer bottle right now, right? He politely asked you to turn his headphones up. Next time, it's going to be something thrown at your face, right? So just be aware of that. And I'm like, thanks, Tom. Thanks. We got you. Appreciate that, brother. And he's like, hey, real life experience, man. Real life experience. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
man. How many beer bottles you got thrown at your face because you got their monitor mix wrong, bro?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
God damn, man.
yeah, yeah, man. That's so trippy, man. That we have that experience there. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I look forward to exploring that more, man.
Yeah, me too.
Well, with when you started sound healing, for my personal experience, I kind of had to throw away a little bit of my music theory that I understood. It definitely came back into where the placement of certain instruments might feel right for me, and that's intuitiveness. But like with sound healing, everything sounding good isn't all like quote unquote good. Like let's take a major scale, right? Everything sounding within that major scale isn't always the most healing that you can have, right? Sometimes we need to create dissonance and we need to create
Yeah.
these clashing sounds, right? To confuse the brain a little bit. And so when I first started the sound healing, it took me a while to get my head wrapped around that idea of not everything needs to sound good, and sometimes like the timing needs to be off so the brain isn't expecting what to hear, because when we break that pattern, that's when the healing happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that 100% is I'm grateful that I'm not a drummer personally because I know I can drum, but like I know like you get in these pockets of rhythm like you were saying, and the sound people that I've learned from, like learning the sound healing, is kind of like you're not playing a song. This
Right.
isn't a to, like you said, to sound good. It's like this is like if anything's too repetitive, then it's like we get this comfortability, which maybe you want for a second, but it's like bringing this journey through where, like I remember when I was doing with you guys, like I accidentally hit the bowl one time and it rung out like a shot through the dark, but it was like Camo's like that was the perfect timing for me, like it, and that's real, like learning. Kind of feels like Miles Davis in my ears. Like there's no wrong notes.
Right.
Just like you just play these and feeling it out, and that intuition is so big on these instruments. All the theories are important, but it's like noticing breathing, the energy of the room, all those things, like just seeing, I haven't, again, done it in these big rooms, but with people, just individual people, like you can see, oh, their breath is longer and deeper, and
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is good. And it's like, oh, whoa, they're tightening up a little bit here. Okay, let's release some here. And like you're playing the energy of the room, energy of their body, like it's, I mean, an orchestrator,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so deep. I mean, words are hard to put to it. Words are
Right.
really hard to put to it. And I feel I had to throw away some of that too. Is like just letting go. It's like creating that dissonance, putting bowls together. There's a layout that I like to have, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know why, but I'm going to put this one over here today. And trust that intuition, for whatever reason, I'm called to put this bowl right here.
Right.
And someone in the room was calling it in, maybe I need it, maybe whatever, but the energy of this experience is calling this in.
Definitely. I had a sound bath on Saturday, just a couple days ago, and there's a gentleman that comes to a lot of my sound baths at this particular studio, and we have a lot of good conversations. He's a great guy, and he brought in a one of his Tibetan bowls the other day for the sound bath, and he's texted me ahead of time. He's like, "Hey, do you mind if I bring this in? This is my son's. He's got a 9-year-old son that's Nepalese." And so he's like, yeah, this is, a gift I brought for my son, but can I bring it in? Can you charge it with some energy? I'm like, dude, of course, bring it in. And he brings in this 150-year-old hand pounded Tibetan bowl. I'm like, oh my God. Like as soon as I put it in my hands, like this 14-inch bowl, I'm like, holy Jesus Christ. Thank you. First off, thank you for trusting me with this. And let's figure out how I can put this into the set, and it's not like, not like we have set lists, or I'm going to play fucking Skinner or anything, but like, I have understandings of like, where I start and all this stuff. But, that offering to me completely opened up, that intuitiveness of me again, because, I've been doing these for a few years now. It's not like not like I have a set list, but we find ourselves in these pockets. And so something like that, a new instrument for me is that opportunity for me to, again, just get out of what I think I know what I'm doing and just to embrace everything from this starting point now. And that was such a cool experience, because I love layering in different instruments. I'm was very inspired by yourself actually, Eric, and got a flute recently.
Dope.
And
Dope.
I can't remember the name of it. It's a little box flute, little rectangular shaped box flute. And just trying to play with that. And again, that opens up a whole nother aspect to my practice. That creates, because I can't play the flute and the bowls at the same time. And right now I don't have like a looping machine of some sort. So I have to create silence in order to create the pocket for that flute to come in, to do its job, to hold its space, and then, create that silence again for the other things to come in around it. And before then, I didn't have that, so that gives me an opportunity to create something different and to get out of my own head of what I thought was going to happen and just intuitively be like, oh, my hand's grabbing for that flute now. I guess it's quiet time. We're going to play the flute for a little bit.
That is dope, dude. A looper. That's like, I want a looper so bad,
dude.
I want one. I'm like, okay, how dope would that be? You're like just flowing in it and, and just, whew.
Yeah, I have a buddy that I do another podcast with, and he was actually joking around with me the other day. He was like, "Yeah, you should." He's an old bass player. He's like, "Bro, you should get a fucking line 6, bro, and then you could loop those synth sounds." And he's like all joking about it. And I'm like, "That's actually a fucking great idea, man." Because I don't know, like I'm no pianist by any means, but I can know a chord, and I can know the chord that counters that and that complements that. Play like 5 chords, loop that bad boy in, and then bring my bowl overtones, and then it's like, you're onto something, bro.
Dude, I feel you. I actually just created with a few. We're in the process of creating with a couple Sacred Sounds guys that they kind of do the sound journeys for all the events, like the big events. And so I've been mixing the live sound for these events.
Wow.
But I've been building a relationship, and it's like I want to step into this. So I was inspired the other day. I did like a 33-minute, 33-second, it's pretty specific, sound journey where because I do sound design. So I do all like the, bugs, birds. So I did like, there's all these like clans in Sacred Sons. There's, Eagle Clan, Stag, the elk, dragon. So I did all these like 2-3 minute sections that have the energy, this is the fire, this is underwater, this is the beach, this is in the jungles, this is, the jaguars. And so I did all these like soundscapes.
Wow.
And I'm really like, that's what I'm creating. And I really, when I'm doing these sound journeys, I want to continue to create these. And I want to throw out there to you if you need sound effects.
Man.
Or even like when I get these layers, that's what I really want to do, is be able to give them to friends who do these sound journeys and say, hey, here's a 30-minute, here's an hour journey. This was a stream, a mountaintop to the ocean journey.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like you could be like, oh, this month I'm going to do a journey on that.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
And
that's a great idea, man. That is a great, beautiful idea. And, even though some of this sound healing's been around for centuries, like we're
yeah,
not inventing anything, but
no.
we're at a point now where we can use the technology that we currently have to innovate and to push this sound therapy into a new realm. Like
Yeah.
they have those toning machines where they hook you up and figure out where your imbalance is, and they can pump that tone into you to create balance. Like we
Yeah.
didn't have that back in the 1,500 years ago. At
Yeah.
least in this more precise way that we're doing it. So, why don't we use the technologies around us to help amplify this experience and to,
Hmm.
it's like mixing your Western medicine with the Eastern medicine. If I have a
Yeah.
cold or if I have a joint pain, I'm going to try and take some herbs for it, and I'll go that route. But if I get in a
Yeah.
car accident, my guts are hanging out, I'm not going to go to an herbalist. I'm going to go to the goddamn surgeon and put my guts back in,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Yes.
you embrace the both sides of it, and
Yeah.
that's exactly that. You've got the Tibetan bowls, you got the rattles, you got the things that are just the natural sounds around us that we've been using for centuries. Now we have
Yeah.
this layer of technology that can add to all of that, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful that you're melding that stuff together, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like this past 20 years is like I've been yearning, and I am like turning a corner of transitioning my career right now.
Hmm.
And it's like, it like makes sense that I would use this career that I've built these skill sets in to be able to come into that next range where it's like, hey, it's not that these TV shows or films are like not important or anything, but it's like, to me personally, like this work, the men's work, sound healing, these are real. This is real work.
Yeah.
This is real. This like impacts someone's life where they can come to a sound bath and they were going through so much things and they left clear of how to move forward in their life, or had a whole sadness flow through them, and maybe they even haven't cried in years,
Mm.
and all of a sudden they find themselves bawling. And that's, to me, that's important, and where I want to be heading in my life. And
Yeah.
as I'm, this year I'll turn 43. I look maybe 70 in the hair, 80.
Silver fox, bro.
Silver bucks. And so I'm ready to be in this more,
Yeah.
and use this sound, use sound as a big avenue to reach people. And it's like, I almost is like an opportunity, because it's like you play these things, we do these things, and we're not projecting. Is like, it's the people receiving are like, how open are you to receiving, and you doing your own,
Mm.
because you can hold a block. And yet I do say, I kind of joke, is like, you can run but you can't hide from sound.
Yes.
Like it's, we can have all these masks and pretend, but like when these sound bowls and things are coming, your cells, everything is feeling it. You could like mentally be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like your body's going, woo, this is
Yeah.
beautiful, man. Your
Hell yeah.
cells are dancing and in the soup.
Yeah, exactly. All spiced up, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's so beautiful to hear you talk about like what you're passionate about, because it's almost like, being witness to an actualization moment. When we
Hmm.
actualize as a human being, and we find the way that all the weird things that we're passionate about fit together, like,
Yeah.
men's work and spirituality and sound healing and, the past that you've had, and all these beautiful things that just
Yeah.
finally coalesce into this beautiful, like, symphonic, like, just cacophony of thing that here's your presentation to the world now. Here is your healing
Yeah.
device. Here is all of those cool, weird things that you never thought would mash together.
Hmm.
Now they mesh together and they present this beautiful gift towards humanity.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like being witness, excuse me, to that actualization moment, and just being witness to just seeing how those nonsensical puzzle pieces fit together. That's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Thank you for seeing me in that, brother. It's what a journey, what a beautiful journey and the dynamics of it. Because I remember, at the beginning, it was all about me. Then for a while, it was like, how can I help other people? Then it was, and it's been like this, and really, it's like I my soul is just like I love feeling that energy of sharing
Hmm.
and also receiving. I love that energy of receiving, just people seeing me in that. Like
Yeah.
just that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
And because when I first got into qigong, it's like I'm gonna heal people.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, I want to share that this just popped in my head
Hmm.
is on this journey, which it was, it was a while ago, and I was learning a lot of like shamanic drumming and doing, um, some people love him or hate him, but the Michael Harner,
Hmm.
like shaman, the 120 beats per minute
Oh yeah.
drumming and journeying and all these things, and I was doing all the workshops and all these things, and it was beautiful, and I was journeying for myself, for other people, and just it was phenomenal having just these transformative experiences. And kind of like my ego was getting filled a little bit
Hmm.
in that at the time, and it was like, oh, I'm drumming you to heal. And I didn't really realize that. I didn't think that. It was just later, this story I'm going to tell is where I realized it is my niece had been visited in her dreams and haunted by her friend who committed suicide.
Oh wow.
And he was like, save me, help me, help me transition, help me, all these things. So I'm like, I'm going to drum and journey and help him come to the light. And even though I called in the ancestors, did all these things, like at the time, my energy of I got this,
Yeah.
rather than like, it's like I can say I got this, but like it was, connecting to all oneness, all the things we've already talked about, like connecting to that.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't fully go in there at that time, and so I went in there and go on this journey, and we're down in these depths, and it's a black river and black pebbled
Hmm.
sides of the river and black big cliffs and all these things, and he looks at me with black kind of eyes, just staring soullessly. And I
Wow.
was like, do you want to come to the light? And I'm just massively getting chills right now.
Yeah.
My
Right.
hairs are up. And he looks, and it's like, and kind of like a zombie almost. And we start walking, and we're heading to the light. And he goes a bit, and he just stops, turns around, and walks back to the river's edge, right
Oh
where he
shit.
was. And I was like, holy shit. And I was kind of devastated. I
Wow.
was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What This isn't about me. This is, and so I took a break from that stuff for a long
Hmm.
time, and I still haven't really been journeying for. I journey for myself all the time,
Right.
and I bring drumming into the sound healing process. Yet I have been very, not apprehensive, but maybe, yeah, apprehensive is like, and checking myself anytime I step into these sound healing experiences or sharing music, like, what is my intention?
Right.
Like clear as hell, like clear as day. And if there's any bit of that, like again, like we were talking before, is like accepting it. Oh, thank you for showing up, wanting to. Great, you think you're one sound healing today. That's beautiful.
Right.
You are a vessel, bro. You are a vessel of this. You have this experience. That's true.
Hmm.
Yet you're a channel for these instruments to bring all the energy, allow the energy to come through you. And so I'm glad that happened.
Yeah.
I'm glad because it knocked me to my knees on my spiritual path of like, holy shit, like that was out of a line, and thank goodness, um, nothing crazy bad happened,
Right.
or I didn't, because I could see how you could really, with that projection, with that, you can mess some shit up.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. That ego, it still is ego. You know, that pops in. It's like I got this, and I
totally.
battled that a lot, and I still battle that.
Yeah,
One of the phrases that one of my teachers taught me was, "You are your own healer." I'm not doing shit for you. I'm not going to wave a
yeah,
magic wand. I'm not going to fucking Spectra Patronus your ass and you're going to fucking get healed, right? No, this is, I'll hold the space. I'll create the container. I'll throw the
yeah.
music at you. I'll chant. I'll do all the things that I can on my end to create safety that you feel that you can journey, but you are your own healer. But
Yes.
that's got to pop up every once in a while. You know, I think, you know, having that experience like you just talked about, you know, I do feel that, you know, we're given the grace to make mistakes as long as we understand the lesson that comes from that mistake. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, we're held in a container to show us like, hey, your ego's strong today. Here's what the damage that could possibly do, and here's a scenario like you just talked about. Luckily,
Hmm.
nobody was hurt because you were held in that. You were gifted a lesson, right? It was a
Yeah.
lesson that is still
Yeah.
probably unpacking inside of you right now. But we
Yeah.
need to have those lessons. We need to be in check because we're doing good. We're doing important work, right?
Yeah.
We're holding
Yep.
space. We're creating containers for people. And it's not that I'm important because I'm doing the work, but the work is important. And so I think that's the
Yep.
message is that we got to be reminded that it's the trabajo. It's not us. It's not me. It's the trabajo. It's the work that we're doing, the space
Yes.
that we can hold so people can journey and find that healing that they need.
Yeah.
I had a an ego check similar, not similar, I should say, but I had an ego check the other day. I was doing a sound bath about a month ago now. And, you know, traditionally sound baths, people just lay down, right? They're laying, they might move from side to side. Every once in a while, I get somebody to get up to go to the bathroom, but typically people just lay there.
Yeah.
And so I was at this studio and I've done a couple sound baths there. And for some reason, it's a hot yoga studio, and typically the heat's off. It's a cool room. And, but this time something was wrong with the heater. They couldn't get the heater off. So I walked
Mm.
into this place and it's 100 degrees. I'm like, oh Christ, man. All right. And I'm a yoga teacher, so I get it. I get the heat. I understand the heat. But man, okay. So I'm like setting up and I'm sweating setting up. I'm like, man, I'm going to be like Neil Peart back here, just sweating my balls off, you know? And it's a packed class. There's like 55 people in there. And so we get rolling, and it's just the energy's thick, you know, from the heat that's on still to the amount of people
Hmm.
that are in there. There's agitation because of the heat. There's fidgetiness because of the heat. And but you know, I'm in my zone. I'm playing my things. I'm gonna head down because I'm not used to looking around except to just check on people's breathing, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing, and all of a sudden I look up, and I'm probably about 20 minutes into an hour-long sound bath, and there's a good half of those people are sitting up, looking right at me, because they couldn't lay there in their sweat. They had to move, and so their movement involved looking at me, and immediately I got stage fright. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not used to people looking at me like this. I'm like, oh god, and I start questioning, should I play this bowl now? Should I gong something? You're looking at me. Why are you looking at me? Lay back down, you know. And I totally got in my head about this thing, and my ego just took over and like, you're doing it wrong. You're gonna fuck it up. Oh my god, you're doing it wrong. And so I just had to close my eyes and pretend that they were all laying back down again, and just kind of
Hmm.
concentrate on something that just my intuition again. But
Yeah.
it was that ego flare up of like, oh shit, I'm being seen right now. Oh, I'm not used to being seen in this moment. Like
Yeah.
I chant and I sing a little bit during my sound baths, and that's something that like I've developed stage fright over the years. So my way of battling stage fright and getting back into it was chanting to people laying down, not looking at me. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like I'm chanting and people are looking at me. I'm like, ah, crap, man. Like this is not what I expected today. But I needed that. I needed that to know
Yeah.
that like my ego one was okay with that to accept the fact that I was being witnessed. You know, whereas before people just witnessed me with their eyes closed, they witnessed the sound, they don't witness me.
Yeah.
But my ego needed that to one. I think it needed to know that it was being seen. It needed to
Hmm.
know that there wasn't a veil over it and that it could do whatever the f it wanted to. It's like no, the
Hmm.
ego is being seen as much as Adam is being seen right now.
That's
And
beautiful, man.
big growth moment for me, man.
Dude.
Oh, y'all are looking at me now, son of a bitch.
What an amazing experience to be able to like on like live
Mm,
while it's happening, go through that process of accepting, loving yourself, and going back into what you were already doing, but like going experiencing that
hmm
and coming back to it, and wow,
Yeah, it's a
That's
very ethereal moment for me. I was dripping and sweat into the bowl. I had to clean my bowls out afterwards. There was so much sweat in those bowls. Like I literally was dripping sweat. It was intense.
hot sound baths. We
Woo.
started a new thing, man. You started a whole new. It's like,
I think if I explore that more, I'm gonna have to, even though I don't appreciate him as a human being, but how Bikram would sit up there in his ice throne with air conditioning all around him while all the yogis were practicing in a 120 plus degree room. He'd be up in his ice throne with all these air conditionings and all this thing blowing on him and his little Speedo just
yeah, I
dictating
was gonna
class,
say,
you know?
you got to wear a speedo if you do that, bro.
Oh, I don't know. The world's ready for me in a Speedo, brother.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was joking with my kids. They said, "As I'm getting in better shape, guys, I'm gonna start going Euro on you. I'm gonna get on this. I'm gonna get on this Euro trip. Start showing some skin out there."
Oh man. I mean, see, that's
Shoot,
half the fun of being a dad is just embarrassing the shit out of our kids. I think that's
it
where
is
my ego loves to take a back seat. It's like, no, no, no,
totally,
embarrass the shit out of your kids. I'll be back here, but it's all good,
totally.
man.
And what's funny is it seems like, their friends like think it's funny and like it's like, oh, they're a cool dad. Wow, they're being silly and then they're because I remember being embarrassed by my parents.
Uh huh.
Like, shoot, I made my dad drop me off like a block or two away. It's like, dude, I'm walking in, you ain't dropping me off. And my like looking back, I'm like, my dad was a cool ass dude.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, with your kids, man. I mean, so you've got two kids,
3 kids.
3 kids.
Yeah.
Do your kids have an interest in like the path that you're on? Like, do your kids go to sound baths with you, or do they have like their own version of what would be considered a spiritual practice of some sort? I mean, they're kids. I
Yeah,
mean, they can do what they
yeah,
do.
yeah, for sure. Something we do is I mean, there's a lot of different things, but years ago I started praying at all of our meals.
Okay.
And so I've led by example a lot. And so I'll just call on one of them sometimes, like, and sometimes it's like, but it's like they are praying and they're seeing that. And um, my son did the Sacred Sons youth program recently, the
Oh,
13-year-old
beautiful.
year old son,
Okay.
and he's able to work with his emotions a lot more now.
Mm.
Like I'm seeing it work through like his soccer season. He would get so nervous before, and it almost like until 5-10 minutes in, until someone maybe bumped him and got him like out of his head. It was you could sense the nervousness. He goes into the games and accepts the nervousness,
Mm.
accepts that he feels all these, and really like sees it. And it's like, oh, thank you for showing up. Kind of the same thing we've been talking about
Yeah.
is, and so our dialogue, our verbiage is grown to be able to understand each other, and he's able to call me in when I'm out of alignment in
Mm.
my parenting, or it's like, hey, like, what's up with that? That seems unfair. What's and so we can go into these deeper conversations rather than like, at least when I was a teen, just kind of shoving under the rug or
Totally.
explosions, kind of as we began the rage. And so, I mean, all these different things that I want to share. But like, so the other night
Hmm.
was they were both my middle 9-year-old and 13-year-old. They were kind of at each other, and I just brought it. It was just spur of the moment, and brought them together. And there's this thing in Sacred Sons called ritual connection,
Hmm.
where it's like there's like charges, and it's like you share the facts. Okay, what's the facts? What's the facts? Okay, how do you feel? How do you feel? And so we went through this whole experience of like, okay, let them know all the things you don't like about them.
Hmm.
Let them, hey, nope, you're not, your turn's not right now. Your turn's next. And they went through this whole thing and shedding tears and I don't, okay, can you say something you love about them? And they got to this place of like, because it was like this aggression, all these
Hmm.
things. It was like, I just want to spend more time with you.
Oh.
And then the other one was like, I want to spend time with you, but when I come home from school, I don't like that you come straight to me. I have hard classes and I want to come home and spend a while chilling out and then I can be with you. But you come home and you just want to be with me right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so they went through this whole thing. And because I've been growing and leading by example and being that leader in the household, I think they've been able to, by osmosis and just being in that where I'm communicating this way with them all the time. They're able to share how they feel,
Mm.
all the feelings, all like projections, like it's all open, it's all
Yeah.
on the table. And there's so many other experiences I could share like that, but it's like that's a spiritual practice. Right
Yeah.
there is like we're seeing each other, we're feeling each other. Anger, share how
Yeah.
they make you, how you're feeling angry when they do this, and in a safe space where shut up, go to your room. They're
Right.
in, mom, mom. It's always mom, mom,
Right.
mom. It's like, dude, you know you don't want to call me in because I'm gonna come in and we're gonna talk about some things.
Right. Yeah. We're getting to the nitty gritty with this shit.
And so, and afterwards it was like, and we've done that a few times, but that was the deepest we had gone.
Mm.
It was a realization of like, wow, like these kids are very deep and caring and spiritual and connected to their experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
there's
mean, just creating an opportunity for them to explore healthy conflict.
yeah,
I mean, we're in such a space right now. A lot of us that if we disagree, we think that we're at odds with each other now. Like, I don't agree with you, now I hate you, and now you hate me. It's like,
yeah,
no, we can still love each other and have disagreements. We can
yeah,
still not see eye to eye, and then still
yeah,
have like immense emotions for one another, deep seated love. And so, I'm so happy to hear you say that, man, because like our kids need to understand that we can have conflict and still walk away and hug each other. A lot of our
yes,
arguments now are done by social media, by text, by email, not done face to face.
yeah,
And when we have that ability to sit and ruminate about what the answer we want to give and then send that perfect answer, not to get to see the emotional response of the person receiving that answer, that's just
yeah,
there's such a disconnect with real time conversation. And when we can hold that space and teach our kids like
yeah,
how to have healthy conflict, how to get
yeah,
past it, how to still love, how to even if you still walk away disagreeing, you can
hmm
still love that person and
yeah,
respect that they have an outlook that you just don't understand.
yeah, yeah. It's so powerful. It's my family kind of had. I shared this I think at our men's circle, but whereas like we've been doing this, but where there was this major thing that happened. It's kind of ghostly. I think I don't know if you remember, but so I'm sleeping in my girls' room that day, and there was this event where I think someone's in the room,
That's
and I
right.
go and I got slammed on the ground, and spirit,
Mm,
there was some entity energy there,
right.
and it terrified the shit out of my kids.
Yeah.
And Dad stepped in as a warrior, like accepting, and we did ceremony, and like I do this a lot myself, and they see me,
Hmm.
and sometimes I invite them in, but since then it's like, hey, Dad, we should sage off this place. We have, Dad, could we use that thing that you have with that charcoal thing or whatever? Can we
Uh,
put some stuff? And so they're seeing the value because I'm like, yes, there's fun and spirituality, but this is serious, guys. This is
right.
our soul. This is our life. Like when we pray, I'm not just, oh, thank you for the food, man. Yeah, whatever. Let's eat.
Yeah.
It's like, can I feel super grateful for this food when I'm praying? Can I get to the point where it's not just I grew up in Christianity, just, and not to diss it, but
Hmm.
just a repeating of some words that someone else told you to say that is this, or can I find it in my own spirit to connect to this prayer, to my spiritual practice?
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm instilling with my kids is like find your own way because your prayer is going to sound different
Right.
than my prayer, and we all have our own prayer and connections and what it is. You may find you want to be Buddhist. That's cool. Like
Right.
you do your path. I'm showing you my path and what I know, or am on the path because I feel like the more I know, the less I know.
Dude, 100%, brother. 100%, man. God damn.
Oh man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's an approach I take with my kids as well. I'm not sitting there shoving spirituality down their throat. One of my kids, my youngest kid, explored church for a little while and went to church with one of her friends. Got scared as shit because the whatever church she went to is still practicing the fire and brimstone, devil hell kind of stuff, and
Mm.
basically told her if she does anything wrong, she's gonna get fucking burned in hell. And Harper's like, I think there's a different way. I don't like this. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go somewhere else. And
Good.
and so but my kids they practice yoga with me. When they're in town, they'll do sound baths with me. Every once in a while, I'll get them to a Reiki session. I know
Mm.
kids are really susceptible to energy work, so I know it's very strong for them. But
Yeah.
like my youngest kid, we got her a tarot deck for Christmas last year, and so
Nice.
it's we're giving them, showing them what's out there, but
Yeah.
not forcing it down their throat, being like saying this is what you need to do, this is the spirit you need to worship,
Yeah.
this is what energy is. Like, no, you feel it out. Like your grandmother's name is Faye. She's a fairy, right? So you have fairy blood in you somewhere, right? So you're gonna feel
Yeah.
it, you're gonna experience it. Just see what happens with it.
Yeah.
And that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. I mean, the big thing I already said is like I'm working with them. I'm like, if there's one thing I can do in my life is to help you understand your emotions
Hmm.
and how to identify them, transmute them, and accept them. Like everything else, like if from there, you can like do whatever. Like you can do whatever, like be a rocket scientist, whatever. But like if you're able to be in that and not let them run your life like I
Right.
have in the past is and at times still unraveling that because
Right.
they had the reins for so long and I would justify it as I'm a passionate person.
Yeah.
I'm passionate, man. It's like oh I wore that shit as a pride badge.
Damn straight.
Like volatile emotions were like a pride badge. Like I'm passionate. It's like
Yeah.
whoa, yeah. You're also scary
Yeah.
and unsafe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for my kids, the thing I keep coming back to is just showing them ways to get out of their shit. It's
Mm,
if my kid, my youngest kid saw a snake not too long ago,
yeah.
and we were down in Eastern Washington, little gardener snake, little grass snake, nothing poisonous or anything. And but as humans, we're innately afraid of snakes and spiders and shit like that. And it
Yep.
scared the shit out of her. She started crying. She was shaking. And I grabbed her and pulled her over. I'm like, hey, so what happened? She talked to me about what happened. I'm like, okay, so I know this might sound weird, but shake your body, right?
Mm.
Shake your body, shake your arms, shake your head, shake your feet. Get that energy out. You got this nervous energy, and you got to shake it out. And she looked at me like I was an idiot. I'm like, okay, Dad is an idiot. I'll give you that, but there's science behind this. There's a reason behind this. I'm like, okay, so
Yeah.
you remember? So let's take a nature documentary, right? You got a lion that's chasing a zebra. That zebra's running for this damn life. He knows if it gets caught, he's going to get eaten, right? So he's running for his life. He's cutting left, cutting right, all this stuff. And you know what? The zebra gets away. Something happens. Zebra gets away. The lion runs off back to its pack. When that zebra finally feels safe, it violently shakes from head to toe. And it doesn't take long, maybe 10 seconds, 5 seconds, but it shakes and it has that nervous energy. It's got to get out. Like the
Yeah.
zebra doesn't go sit down and meditate. The zebra doesn't go sit down and take a cold bath. Like it doesn't have that time. It's a fucking zebra, right? It's got
Yeah.
energy that it needs to get out, and it shakes its stuff out, and then he's fine. And he goes trotting off somewhere back to its zebra pack. So I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
think about that, right? You might feel strange. You might look, what you would consider strange, but it doesn't matter if it makes you feel better. Like embrace that, right? And so like that's
Yeah.
part of that stigma that with my kids that I'm working through is that I don't want to look weird, I don't want to feel weird, I don't want to be the weird kid. Cool, all right, there's a tree, go hide behind that tree and shake the shit out of yourself, right? Get that
Yeah.
nervous energy out and then come back to the pack and be good, right? But
Yeah.
find that healthy way. Take a deep breath. Go do some light work, go do some meditation, whatever it is. But like,
Yeah.
there are these now somatic ways that we know to get ourselves out of our shit. That's what I'm trying to make sure that they understand. Not necessarily the spiritual practices that go with it. That can come later if they want that.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah.
that gnosis, that knowing of, I can breathe and get myself out of my anxiety and out of my depression. I can shake the shit out of my body. I can do qigong. I can do all
Mhm.
these practices that will help me understand my body more. And
Yeah.
then from there's where that self-healing kind of idea continues to layer in there. I am my own healer because I know I can breathe. I am my own healer because I know how to meditate.
Like no, like normalizing all the things that seem overwhelming
Hmm.
is like and have it like you said having these tools and it's just like it and I get especially like as they become into teenage years and things like they might have 100 other students that aren't into that and so it's like as they're finding their identities like navigating these aspects, I could imagine is challenging
Mm-hmm.
to not want to be a different kid or seem like a weirdo to like, you know, it's like, but it's like, hey, the reality is later they're gonna look back and go, man, if the kids can incorporate these things, whether it's in their privacy of their own space or expanding, you know, and bringing this to the table with their friends, like opening that up. That's, I mean, I pray for that. I really, it
Yeah.
is what it is, and you know, like my son, he's encouraging several of his friends to get into the Sacred Sons youth program because
Oh,
he's like,
beautiful.
yeah, it's, you know, he's bringing it as just like, oh yeah, I'm able to like play soccer more and I don't feel as nervous, and just like simple things where it's like they don't, you know, it's like it's so simple for
It,
for them. Like when we get older, it's like, how do I align myself with Shiva and
uh-huh.
you know, in this crown chakra I've got, and it's like that is beautiful, but there's also a simple, like, hey, shit goes better when I do this.
Right.
I don't know why, but shit just goes better.
Yep.
Do you want to do better, cooler shit and live a easier life? Cool, let's do some shit together.
Yep. Totally, man. You know, and all those, all the people that I look at that have reached some point of like, you know, quote unquote enlightenment or understanding or, you know, whatever that consciousness expansion is,
Yeah.
there's generally like a childlike quality about them. There's this awe and wonder with everything, you know, like when you
Yeah.
see the Dalai Lama, you know, talking to anybody, he is looking at them in their eyes like there's nobody else around them. He is smiling like they're the most beautiful thing that he's ever seen in his life and giving
Yeah.
them the attention that they deserve, you know, and that he wants to give them, not just because he feels like he has to. And this
Yeah.
that childlike wonder and awe of like, hey, there's a cell phone in my hand that I can access anything in the fucking world right now. How cool is that? It's like that's really cool. Like the
Yeah.
fact that you can appreciate it for that what it is, you know. And it's just you know, if we can get back to that childlike wonder and that awe and
Mm.
teaching it at a young age to not go away from it and to embrace that childlike wonder,
Yeah.
that's you know that's it's going to be interesting to see where the you know the consciousness of our parenting generation raises the next generation and seeing how that now parenting will affect the next generation after that. Right. Because, you
It
know, we
is.
all do the best we can with what we got. You know, I don't hold my parents accountable for hitting me with a fly swatter. I was probably an asshole and deserved it. They didn't
Yeah.
know that that was beating a child back in the day, but, you know, like we do what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mouth got washed out with soap. Like if we
Yeah.
did that now, you'd probably get CPS. You'd probably go to jail for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But that's just
Yeah.
that was parenting. That was they were doing the best they could with what they had. And now we're a generation that I can definitely tell you I fucked up a lot of stuff with my kids. I was an absent parent. I was, you know, a very selfish young dad. But I have to give myself grace to know that I was doing the best I could then, and I'm still doing the best I can now with the
Yeah.
information that I have, and that's all I can
Yeah.
do. I can't manifest anything better than what I got.
Yeah, I feel that I talk about that a lot with my kids, you know, and my relationship to my parents
Hmm.
is just, you know, whether, you know, my dad's gone, as you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
and so it's like there's still like that's an for me, I believe in eternal energy, and you know the spirit is forever, so
Hmm.
it's like a realization is like, oh, I can still connect and heal and forgive, and also just remember, like, dad, his spirit was eternal in that body, and I held him so hard on the choices he made in his body,
Hmm.
but now as I'm is like, no, but he's an eternal being, and that's the essence. Those are the things that I really loved about him, or all of those aspects. And I mean, it's a journey of just self acceptance and love, and really, you know, like for my, not to go on another tangent, but like my mom, there's a lot of self acceptance I'm journeying on right now.
Hmm.
Is to really, um, she shared with me the other day. She said, "I've always been jealous of you."
Oh, interesting.
And because there's always been this little edge, and it's like a kind of approving that she's done, or not going to my sports events, or be like, I'm not as good as your dad, you know, like there's always been kind of like a rejection
Okay.
from my mom. And that was the first time she said, I've been jealous of you because you go to the threshold and you go through it every single time. The fear is never won for you. You always, no matter what, you break through. She's like, my whole life I go to the edge and then I go back. The fear is always won in me. And it was like a healing moment for me and both of us, is just to see, like, where am I doing that in my life, but also it's just like with her and our specific relationship, is I had been feeling that disconnect and, man, I want to be closer, and like she was at where she was at because she was holding on to judgments about me, about,
Right.
feeling less than, all these things. So she was coming out there. We healed this thing, and like I feel connected, more
Wow.
connected with my mom, and all these things to be able to break through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful I'm able to do it while she's alive.
Right.
While I wasn't able to do a lot of that with my dad while he was alive, so I'm doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm in it with my children, I'm like, I know there's going to be things that they're going to need to be processed, but I'm like, how can we be in it now? How
Right.
can we be, it's like this growth thing that, we're all growing together. Like
Yeah.
it ain't dad's like here and you ain't ever going to be. It's like we're all expanding and contracting, and how can we hold acceptance
Right.
for each other when we fuck up or we are out of alignment? Can we humble ourselves, and instead of like continuing to add on traumas, can we handle this trauma and work with this trauma and transmute this trauma now?
Hmm.
So then it's like there's a lot of other things to work on. But in the past, that's where I've gone, is like with my parents in particular,
Yeah.
is trauma building. That's what I kind of call it, is just stacking the. You ever hear that guy? I don't even remember. He had the song "Fuck Shit Stack."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you gotta fuck. Yeah, fuck shit stack like that. Like the trauma stacking, and so
Oh
I'm
shit.
done trauma stacking. I
Uh huh.
am aware that that is something that I've done in the past. So
Yep.
with my family, with my mom, it's like, there's going to be traumas that happen. Always. That's life, is like traumas or whatever, things happening. How can we work with that? How can we keep building with each other and accepting?
Yeah. Yeah. I man. So I have two daughters. My oldest daughter was 5 when their mom and I separated, and so she's 17, almost 18 now. And a couple years back, she finally got to a point where she could establish the vocabulary to express to me how she felt about me,
Mm.
and that was hard, man. That was really really hard to feel that venom, that vehemency from a child, from your own child. But it was also very beautiful because I could tell that was pent up inside of her for a long time, and that her ability to finally speak it, although very angrily, was it needed to happen. And
Mm-hmm.
the work that I, because I was expecting this, I was ready for it. Like I was like, hey, this is going to happen sooner or later. Luckily, I was on a path to where I'm creating the toolbox where I can accept this information. But
Yeah.
man, when she let me have it, all I wanted to do was defend myself. And
Mm.
you don't understand from my side. I was a 23-year-old kid that had a baby accidentally, and it's like all this stuff is going through my head, but at the same time, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm listening to my ego want to say this, but there was that bigger part of me that was like, you just need to sit here and accept this. You're holding the space right now. You don't need to defend yourself. Even if you
Yeah.
tried, it wouldn't do any good. Your job
Mm-hmm.
right now is to hold this space for this child, for them to expel their energy, and for you to just be that backboard for it.
Yeah.
And that was super hard for me to be present in that moment and to accept that energy and not try to do what my ego wanted. And we've had quite a few conversations about that still, and I still imagine there's more to come.
Yeah.
But man,
That's powerful.
there
I
is
mean,
man, there's a lot
that's,
of power for that. Just being able to sit there and accept somebody else's point of view, and accepting that you don't have to share that point of view for it to be valid.
Yeah.
Everything she said, everything she experienced was completely valid on her end, even if I had a story behind it that might disarm her within that. Nope,
Yeah.
she had to say that. Maybe
Sure.
10 years, 20 years from now, when we're adults and we're, sitting around in a rocking chair, and
Yeah.
we can have that conversation. But at this point in time, she needs to know that she was heard,
Yeah.
as
Wow.
hard as that
That
is.
is. I mean, I would. I mean, this is my projection, but I would guess that it really helped her release so much energy and like really like feel seen by dad.
Hmm. Yeah.
Maybe like fearing that dad's gonna say all these things and you did it and you held the space was like another, like you said, there's gonna be other things to talk about, but it's like a major of like, whoa, like that was safe.
Yeah.
That was safe. That was a safe space
Yeah.
to share everything here that I could bring right now to the table.
Hmm.
And has it impacted? Has it continued to expand your relationship? Was that a moment you can look back and go, that was a big opening there?
Yes. Yes. Because it happened while we were floating a river. And so we were on a paddleboard together, and so she came and sat on my paddleboard, and we just had just that talk. We just kind of separated ourselves from the group. A bit
Yeah.
emotional. She was crying, I was crying, and so Monica, my girlfriend, had given me this advice a while back, and I hadn't had a chance to action it yet. But so we had this talk, and we had this beautiful moment, and then the advice Monica gave me was to ask her to let's wash this away in the river that we're in.
Mm.
So okay, we've said what we need to say. We're not saying that this is going to be the end of this conversation, but
Yeah.
let's baptize ourselves in this water and start our
Mm.
relationship new from here. Right. And so we jumped in the water together and came back out, and it was, and still, we still have a struggled relationship. It's not like everything's all said and done now, but
Yeah.
there's an understanding that we're working towards something that we can be proud of together, and it's not just like we're not going to talk about this anymore. We're going to sweep it under the rug and hope that the
Yeah.
memories that we create from here on out will be the best ones. No, we're
Yeah.
going to still understand that dad was a shitty dad for a little while, and that was something that I owned up to. And so
Mm-hmm.
now she can know that she can own up to something that she feels is bad about herself and still have pride with that, and step forth into the person that she may have wronged and find a resolution. And
Yeah.
if anything comes out of that, if that's just if the ability for her to hold space for somebody else while they admit that they were wrong, if that's all that she takes away from it and our
Yeah.
relationship stays struggled, I'm totally fine with that. She
Yeah.
she needs to learn that lesson in some kind of way.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Our
I've
kids are
been there.
the
I've
biggest
been
teachers we
there.
never wanted, right?
Yeah. As my son was going through the Sacred Son stuff, he's 13 and the dust was clearing.
Mm.
And I ended up calling, because I do youth work mentoring. So I've been in these classes, but this one I stepped out of because I was like, I don't want to be there for my son to go through it. I want him to go through it on his own. And I called the lead mentor who's like trained these guys to run the class. So he wasn't even in this one.
Mm.
And exactly what you did is that's what he's like, this isn't advice. I'm just sharing you a tool to use. He's like, be in the fucking fire, bro. You fucking wanted this. You put him in this class. You were ready for it. You knew there was going to be fucking shit coming at you. So be in the fire.
Yeah.
If it's disrespectful, that's one thing.
Right.
If there's, but if there's truths and he's like, listen, be in the fire. And so I've more and more being in the fire. And there's times where I forget about it, and
Uh huh.
I utilize this in all my relationships, actually, with my wife. Like, I'm seeing when I'm able to do that and be in the fire when I typically want to justify, because there's like real actual stuff to talk about, that this is real, this is
Right.
alive. And so I'm still, learning how to do this, is like, then how to at the end is like, maybe not even then, but maybe later, is, hey, when we went through this, I had some things that I really wanted to talk about.
Right.
Some really things that came up that I wanted to be able to express. And so I'm learning that too. So I'm not perfect at any of those things,
Right. Yeah.
but there's now an awareness is like be in the fucking fire.
Yes. Sit in the sensation, man. Be with it.
Be with it because that's like you're like it's the sound healing. It's the same thing. It's like you're holding a space
Mm.
and you're not it's like the kind of the reverse a little bit, but like you're holding the space here and all this energy's coming and instead of me reacting to it and it's just like okay, this is energy.
Yes.
This is real energy and I don't need to make myself feel safe right now from their energy. Let it all flow through.
Yeah.
And
Wow. That's a
so
beautiful
it's
analogy, man. I
yeah.
love that a lot because it is all energy. And, it might be perceived as maybe negative in our consciousness, but it's their purest form of energy being released,
Yeah.
and that's healing, right? That's
Yeah.
healing. That's the epitome of healing is releasing that energy, putting that out into the world and understanding as the receiver that not all energy is, or not all sounds are therapeutic sounds, but that doesn't mean they're not healing sounds,
Yeah.
right? I did a sound bath the other day where there's I don't know if you've in Oregon this has happened, but a lot of the parking lots, like grocery store parking lots, have started putting big surveillance security cameras in them that are
Hmm.
attached to like a work truck kind of thing. So you have this like work truck parked in a parking spot with this big Orwellian,
Interesting.
uh, you know, uh, four cameras spike coming out of the top, and every 5 minutes it sends out this message saying, "Thank you for shopping at QFC. Please, keep your belongings stored," and blah blah blah. Right. So it's just like this big Orwellian, like Big Brother kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I have a couple studios that happens right outside of while I'm doing sound baths, and that's the message is, all sounds can be healing as much as all sounds can be annoying. It's how we perceive them, right? So
Hmm.
if you perceive
Yeah.
that message out there as being something negative and annoying, then of course you're going to feel that. Just like if my mom perceived the chemotherapy she was receiving as toxic, then it would be toxic, it wouldn't be medicine. But
Yeah.
if we can
Yeah.
perceive and keep open to the idea that this is just energy coming in and it's how I perceive it is how it's going to best utilize or be utilized in my body, then that example of your kid yelling at you and speaking their truth, it's like, well, this isn't the energy I wanted, but apparently it's the energy I needed right now. Because they're giving good things that's expelling right now. And I just have to accept the neutrality of this energy coming into me instead of putting an
Yeah.
emotion to it.
Yeah. And I feel all of that. Yeah, just feel like I just want to share this about that situation is he right after that he's like, how are we gonna move forward?
Yeah.
And I said, well, how are you feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling, I'm feeling like you listened to me. I'm like, he's like, well, how are we gonna move forward? And I'm like, we just did. We just like, there's no like rhyme, there's no like formula
Uh huh.
necessarily, but this is it. This is the work we do, and it's gonna look different all
Mm-hmm.
the time. It's gonna change. We may never have this exact moment of this energy happening. Probably won't. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like it was such a beautiful innocence, and also kind of he had that realization. It's like, well, yeah, I do
Yeah.
feel closer. I feel seen. I feel lighter in my body. I have all like I feel all these
Uh huh.
things, and I'm like, so something's happening. That's all we got to do is keep if we keep showing up for each other and working with these types of things. To me personally, that's the life I want to live.
Yeah.
There's all these esoteric, all these cool like but this is the life I want to live is being able to go to the challenging moments, the beautiful moments and be present in
Yeah.
it. I want to be like that's my focus in life is like how present can I be taking a shit?
100%, man. 100%.
How
Yeah.
present can I be brushing my teeth? Can I be present right here and
Mm-hmm.
not be thinking about the next step? Can I be here?
Yep. Dude, actually, I started brushing my teeth with my left hand just for that, just that same idea. How present can I be in the morning? The first thing I do in the morning, I wake up, take a shit, and brush my teeth. right?
Yeah.
So if I'm brushing my teeth now with my left hand, that's awkward feeling for me. I'm like half times I'm up in my nose. I'm like, how the hell did I get up there? You know? But that keeps me present, keeps me aware because my next step is to meditate, and that's sitting silently for about 40 to 45 minutes.
Hmm.
And if I'm not completely out of my stupor of sleep, then I might just doze off in my meditation. Right. So
Yeah.
finding those ways of, waking myself up in different ways, finding ways to, shake up my daily routines
Yeah.
is, man, I welcome that. It's like when a yoga teacher starts off with the left side first. In my head, I'm like, you're fucking crazy.
Mm.
There's no way you can sustain this. I'm a yoga teacher too. If I start with my left side, 3 poses in, I'm fucked, right? And so, but you know what? Kudos to you. You're pulling me out of my shit today. I love that.
I love it.
Oh man, well, dude, I appreciate you talking so much, man. I appreciate this conversation. I think you kind of wrapped it up in a bow right there at the end, man. Be present. Like, how present can we be, and how beautiful can we be in that presence? The presence isn't always beautiful at the time, but there's beauty from the presence, right? And there's beauty from showing up that authentic self, and just like your son, feeling heard. Right. So
Hmm.
feeling heard, holding the space to let that person feel heard, or, having the courage to speak your truth so that somebody can hear that truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that.
So
You
beautiful.
mind if I plug I'm starting a podcast.
Yes. Oh, dude, please hit me
I'm
up, brother.
starting. It's not out there yet. It's
Okay.
called Sacred Breakthroughs.
Mm,
With Natalia Love. Her and I are collaborating together.
wow.
Kind of the masculine, feminine, and yeah. So we'll be coming out soon.
Beautiful. What subject? What's your topic matter? What are you guys
It's
approaching?
gonna be all different things, but really, I mean, it's kind of on spirituality. But it's like she does a lot of feminine, like goddess, priestess
Hmm.
ceremonies, and in that, and so I'm doing a lot of men's work, and so there's a lot of those topics
Beautiful.
of hearing it from the female perspective, like how does this sit, and so we're really exploring, and eventually, like, we want to create, workshops and things together
Yeah.
as well, where it's like, men doing men's work supported by women, women doing women's work supported by men,
Wow.
and feeling, so we can see, so our women can see our rage
Mm,
in this safe container without seeing it at home, and vice versa,
yeah.
is like see these things and have a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's beautiful, man. I'm so excited to hear about that more, man. When do you
yeah.
when's your first episode dropping?
Well, we're looking probably within the next month. We
Beautiful.
have actually three. We're recording our third one this week, and we've kind of been like stacking them,
Uh-huh.
and then we're going to be releasing in that way. So yeah, within the next month is going to be coming out.
Wow. I'm so excited to hear that, man. Please send me a link and let me know when that's dropping, man. I'd love to give it a
Yeah,
shout.
yeah, I would. Thank
Beautiful.
you, brother. Yeah,
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for everything. Thanks for the conversation. Thank you for I mean, in your own way, you've inspired me, right? And you're a very inspiring human being. I feel that from the men's group that we sat in, and the impression that you made on the gentleman that we were with, but the impression you've made on me and the inspiration that you've given me in just the short amount of time that we've known each other. And I haven't actually physically met you yet. We've only just
yeah,
met during Zoom calls and talking on the phone. So I just know when I get that first big Eric Bear hug, I'm just gonna feel
yes,
even more connected. But I appreciate
yes.
you, brother, and I'm deeply grateful to have you in my life and part of this journey that I'm on. And if I can do anything to help you on yours, brother, please let me know.
Thank you, brother, so much.
Blessings to you, brother.
Bless you, brother.
Thank you so much for spending time with Eric and I. Please check out the show notes for anything that Eric's up to and want to connect with him. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast. We appreciate all the help and love and support. Obeisance and love. We'll see you next time.